All right, it's sorry. Good morning, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us for this panel. My name is Federica Guccini. I'm a research associate at 39 Research, doing immigration research, and one of our most recent projects dealt with immigrant skill utilization in different sectors. So I'm very excited that I got invited. There we go. I'll just speak now. I'm very excited that work. Yeah. This works? Yes. Okay. Very excited that I got invited to this panel because it is about sectoral insights. And is this on? I don't trust the microphone, but we'll make do. So for the panel today, we have some great experts here from different sectors and different labor market perspectives. So I'm really excited to have with us Andrew Marchand, managing partner at What's Next Development, also Rania Yunus from ICBC, and Angela White, Senior Director of EI, Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment. I'll give all of our panelists a bit of a chance to introduce their organization and their industry and how it relates to immigration. I would really love to hear from each of you, maybe one thing that's something about the industry and immigration that people in the room might not know, because obviously we're not all in the same sector.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me today. So Andrew Marchand, What's Next Development. So we are a human capital consulting company that really offers tailored solutions to our clients around recruitment, coaching, consulting. It's really a a la carte approach that's designed to understand is where is your business today? What can we do to help you achieve your objectives with a people-based lens? So Angela just gave us 99% SME stat. Those are my points. That's what we're going after. Businesses that are between 2 to probably 30 million in revenue are really kind of our sweet spot of you are going to drive the biggest change in society. So Angela, I got like 1,800 thoughts on everything you're talking about there. Wendy, excuse me, sorry. Okay. I apologize. I was too focused on the second. But that is really our big focus at this point, is really understanding is how do we help these businesses grow, add staff, offer more value, and really get the message out.
Hello everyone. So this is like a last minute thing. I'm filling in for RAF because we commissioned the research with RAF. So IECBC is the Immigrant Employment Council of BC. And I can see a lot of partners around the room here. So most probably know us already, but we're the ones that work on the side of making the employer ready for the immigrant coming in. And so we've worked very closely with in the past 6 to 7 months with the Accidents in Manufacturing Consortium, which RAF was coming to speak to, as well as by Talent Canada to speak to the employers on what have been the barriers for them to integrate immigrant talent into their workplaces. And I'm going to be sharing pretty much what we found on the EMC findings, which surveyed 500 employers and around 30 to 50 individual consultations and and another 40 system actor consultations.
Thank you so much. Great opportunity to be here. It was really surreal coming here today, Wendy. I think this is where I used to party when I went to Ryerson. Pretty sure it was open house. It looks nothing like it used to back then, but it's really cool. Angela White, I lead equity, diversity, and inclusion at Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment. I like to say it's the hardest job ever. EBI is in general, and maybe shared some things that help explain why, but my comments today will probably integrate what I do today. And actually a good part of my job in a previous role, where I spent a lot of time working with newcomers and immigrants to Canada. So I'll bring that to the conversation. But I will just say that, a lot of what Wendy said really resonated with me, certainly as a racialized person, an immigrant, a Black woman, kind of hitting a lot of the areas that Wendy talked about. And I know firsthand how committed, newcomers to Canada can be working again. In terms of just failure not being an option, when you go through what you do to migrate to this country, the sacrifices that are made for people that move to this country, it's always about taking advantage of what they can't access in their home countries and doing better than their parents did or their grandparents did. So it always surprises me any concern one can have about connecting and engaging immigrants in the workplace, because the level of commitment and the work ethic and the determination to succeed, it's just an undeniable investment, and I look forward to double clicking into all the areas today.
Thank you so much, all three of you. I will start out the discussion with a question that's maybe a little bit, basic for you, but again, for people who are not necessarily in your industry or in your research, might not know. So what would you say is the role that immigrants play in your organization and in your sector?
So I'll probably speak from the two perspectives, from the perspective of talent and the perspective of fans. I think it's probably obvious to everyone in this room that sport is a global phenomenon. It's not, privileged to any one group. And we understand the value of sport to change lives, the power of the platform of sport to transform lives. And so for me, looking at it from a talent perspective, the skills, what I just mentioned, the level of commitment, the work ethic, etc., and the fact that we operate predominantly in the GTA, where the majority of the population is racialized. So prioritizing how we attract talent from racialized communities is just good business sense. And the work that I do in EDI very much is an integrated strategy, working across all departments. So specific to recruitment, it's thinking about, in partnership with the recruitment teams, how do we outreach and attract talent from all different communities, and how do we reflect the market that we serve, and how are we intentional about looking at vacancies and making sure that we're taking every opportunity to increase the diversity of the organization. When you look at it from a fan perspective, it's double-digit percentages of our fans that are women, over 40%, and of our fans that are racialized across all of the teams. It differs depending on the team, but on average, it's over 30% of the fans across all of our sports teams that are racialized. And so how you communicate, how you outreach to those particular segments is just necessary for driving long-term sustainable business growth. And even some simple examples, which might not even be something that you think about, but one of the things we did recently at Scotiabank Arena was, that's okay, musical chairs, was take advantage of a renovation that we were doing to think about a way that we could make the space more accessible. And by accessible, I don't isolate to just people with disability, but all people to feel welcome in the space. And recognizing the market that we're in, integrating a prayer room into Scotiabank Arena. I don't know how many people know that we now have one, just made sense, not only for our fans, but for employees as well. So just thinking just more broadly, how can you curate fan experiences and employee experiences that recognize the market that we're in, recognize that sport is watched not just locally in Canada, but around the world. I don't know how many people know that less than 2% of our fans ever commit to our building. the majority of people watch the game in their living rooms or somewhere outside on their phones or away from the building. So just thinking about the increasing percent of people that are participating in sport and the increasing racialized demographic that we live in, it just makes sense for us to continue to design and develop solutions that outreach to those different communities. I'm not sure this is going on.
Yeah, go. Yeah.
Yeah, so if I look at the SME space, I think what you put up there, I'll hold on. You guys let me know if you can't hear me. From building the railroad, modern construction projects, to accounts payable, to every single job within an organization, immigrants represent a huge component of the talent force that people are looking for, asking for, interacting with, and trying to hire. I think one of the things that I'm excited to talk about with this group and with you is how we start shifting from a business perspective of the conversation here is how do we get more immigrants hired, how do we get more people of different racialized groups hired and put into employment. From my end is I think that we have this very clear conversation coming from your organizations around skills that can be brought from other places. One of the things that I work very hard on is how do we create good jobs for skilled people to have, right? So when we start looking at, I think Wendy, you had that great slide of the different racialized groups and from an earning standpoint to it. One of the things that I hope the message can be is above that group is someone who likely looks like me, right? And I want to be very clear about what comes with that. But then there's a massive jump to people who are earning $100,000, $150,000. The average male in Canada earns $62,000. The average woman earns $46,000. That gap is a huge, huge problem. But if we got every woman to $62,000, we would have an immediate massive problem the next day. $62,000 is an unaffordable wage, regardless of. And so when we work with employers, we are very heavily focused on how do we turn them into better businesses that can employ more people at a wage where you can. Again, ideally, we can talk about 2 earning households, the impact of childcare, that responsibility, all of those social conversations to it. But as a whole, if you look at major population centers where most of the immigrants are heading to, if you are not making north of $200,000 as a family income, life is unaffordable, right? So every time we look at GDP growth from, again, in Canada, 1%, in the US, a much bigger portion of the economy, it's, I live 30 minutes north of Hamilton and I can get Amazon Prime delivery between 4 a.m. and 8 a.m. the next morning because somebody's making $32,000 a year. That's a bad job. I don't need that service. There is no ROI as a society to it. So for me is the conversation is if we look at economic station in life and what you're earning, money shouldn't define us. There's all these things to it, but there's so much that unites people who make $50,000, regardless of what they look like, what their experiences have been, and more so about what life can they build, what food can they put on the table, that we can create this consensus among everyone to start driving the fundamental change, which again, Wendy alluded to it is we haven't started good businesses in a long time in this country. We don't make anything. We make things that are offshoots from Amazon or Meta. And if we look at the US GDP growth, they've got their massive corporate entities that are driving a lot of it and underlying the fact that West Virginia and Oklahoma are not doing great either, right? In Silicon Valley, a tech product that is not really, if everybody sat there and said, one of the biggest companies in the world is Salesforce. Anybody here use Salesforce before? Yeah. Wendy, would you like Salesforce?
No.
No, it's exactly. That is the universal opinion for it is, how is this company one of the biggest 50 companies in the world? That's what we make as a Western society now. And I think if we start having a conversation about how we actually build jobs that people, regardless of what they look like, where they come from, can actually build the life that they want, we're going to have a really good time getting employers on side, because employers right now, I'm telling you, my SME clients are down 20 to 30% year over year. And all they're talking about is, how do I grow my business so I don't have to fire 30% of staff? And that is a real conversation. And again, AI is a huge part of this. One of the favorite things I've heard on AI is every company that lets someone go to save on staffing costs is firing. No one's going to have any money, but no one's going to have a job, right? And I think that's where I'm really excited about. Again, the immigrant experience is such an important part. Randy and I got to know each other through this, but the amount of immigrants who come here, and I go to an employer and say, look, I'll tell you about their background, but here's where they started and here's how they got. It's the definition of resilience. It's the definition of problem solving. It's the definition of courage. You don't have to show them the resume, but no, they can do the job. That conversation employers are more and more open to. The mechanic that Wendy brought up, biggest challenge is that job probably pays $45,000 a year. It's not the mechanic's fault. But he doesn't have a business that can pay somebody a living wage to where someone else to show up and do it. It's the answer to the Gen Z problem. When everybody who's a little bit older got the strawberry picking job, it was moving them through, progressing through society, progressing through life to build the house, build the life they want, get that home ownership. Young people aren't opting out because they're lazy. They're opting out because if they work in a strawberry field picking strawberries, nothing will ever change. So why pick the strawberries? Right? And I think that that's where it's a lot of the conversations that we want to have here. And MLC is a fantastic organization, bringing people together. I think just, again, the city of Toronto sports teams, like I don't know who saw Friday night with the Jays, and the Jays have been on social media going back at everybody, asking why we need this. But Toronto sports teams are leading. It's awesome. I want to go into that gas station and figure out how we get them double their revenue, get hire more people, and they pay more people. Because I promise you that owner's going to hire more staff or but if Amazon hires more people, be shareholder, which again, plenty of us in the room might have access to be able to be Amazon shareholders, we get the benefit of that. But that's not an economy that's sustainable. It's just not.
I don't know. I really don't know if we need to say more. I really don't. I'll just confirm a lot of things that were said, and I'll speak. Now that you have me on the panel, I'll speak to both the studies of both biotalent and EMC, even though there were similar problems, but the nature of the problem was very different on both ends of sectors. But with the manufacturing employers in particular, they did not see immigrants or immigration as a backup plan. It was the plan. Like it's 81% of them, I think, said that growth in full-time employment is what they're looking for, but they're still experiencing over 50% shortages, right? They have very much high regard for immigrant talent, more specifically not because of the technical skill, but more of the ethical work integrity, that part of it. And there was a lot of appreciation to the fact that they are filling in jobs no one wants to do, right? That's too something a lot of people don't get to realize. But that's also where I do agree with Andrew here, what most businesses said. And I'll probably also plug this in. When you say immigrants, most especially small to medium-sized businesses in manufacturing, they don't know what you're talking about. Are you talking about selection, or are you talking about people who are here? Because they don't see people who are here as immigrants. They just know Canada, like us, like everyone, right? So when you say immigrants or newcomers to them, they're thinking, are you talking to me about the talent I'm bringing from abroad, or are you saying people who are here? They don't, that distinction is very, they're not really sure what to do with it. Absolutely, yeah. No Canadian experience and foreign credential recognition still come up, but for very different reasons than what the mainstream narrative usually say about them. Maybe credentials that I don't understand, and we'll come to that later, I'm sure, but it was very positive hearing that from most employers. Are they struggling with the hiring and accessing of that talent? Yes, but they're struggling with all talent, not just immigrant.
I do think when you highlight the wokeness topic to it, and you put up a really interesting stat, that 3-to-1 ratio of who supports EDI versus who doesn't. And Patrick and I were having a conversation this morning. And so I live 20 minutes, 30 minutes north of Hamilton, middle of nowhere, kind of place to it. And there is somebody who has a very, the pretty prominent street, very large window, who has a Confederate flag in it. Insane, right?
Your address.
Right. So I'm going to push back on Wendy here. Don't fight them. It's over. It's going to cost you too much in time, in capital, in everything you want to do to convince that person. We have the mainstream. 3-to-1 employers have it. We are fighting a Twitter conversation. And the guy who controls the algorithms will beat you. You don't pick a fight with the newspaper editor. They have unlimited ink. I will tell you this is, again, a lot of people who spend time with people who look like me to it. Everybody's in the exact same spot that ran. So like, you can do the job, show up, do the job. I don't want to pick a fight about any of these kind of things anymore. And I think that one of the challenges to it when we see such hate and such negativity to it is so amplified into our lives. When you go have coffee or you go have a beer with somebody, people don't feel like this. They are all struggling. They all have the same problems to it. They're worried about their kids' future. They're worried about their relationship with their spouse. They're worried about, oh, I got to eat protein now. That's a new thing. And where we did that. All of these things. And I think that one of the things that we need to stop doing is, and this is, I'll use my favorite piece to this is look at the political side to it. We have this minimum wage fight. And the US is my favorite. Bernie Sanders and AOC sit there and said, $15. If they won that fight, does it make a difference? Don't fight like this, and this is the most business executive white guy. Well, I'm going to quote The Art of War here for anybody who's read it. But since Al wrote it, you know, one of the most fabled, every business MBA has this on their desk. Don't fight a fight, then where the other person is shooting. We are not going to sit here and change that last segment of society who is absolutely hateful by trying to convince them. So why Donald Trump keeps winning elections. We keep saying, he's a threat to democracy. Yes, and everybody who agrees already votes for your side. It's a waste of time. How are you going to get people jobs who are sitting there worrying about putting food on the table? Right? And I think that we have to shift the conversation is wokeness is just a regular welcome to 2026. Don't hate other people. General definition at this point in time. Stop trying to convince people who don't feel that way. Start trying to go into what's actually going to achieve the benefits of wokeness. Right? What are those benefits? It's actually pretty capitalistic. It's like, hey, want to go make more money owning this company? Lovely. Here are the people who are going to help you do it. That's the conversation. Because then you get people who are maybe that fence group, which is where the entire fight is, are going to sit there and say, yeah, okay, I didn't know how to grow my business. You're telling me there's a customer segment. You're telling me there's a staffing segment in this sector. Go after them. I'm in. Do you want to help? I need help. Right? And I think that that's what one of the things that for this group in these conversations, everything up there is true. We already agree. So does the vast majority of people out there walking down the street. Let's go shift the conversation of what we're going to do about it and start pushing our political representations together.
I love that through all of your responses, what came through to me was that if you better the business and the diversity for your employees, then you'll also see benefits on the customer side and the outside of the business, right? So Angela, you spoke about the prayer rooms, for example, that are for both employees and for customers. And I think I would love for you to speak a little bit more about like what are some best practices that you've seen in your business that really helped achieve that both like inward diversity and outward. Try
Thank you so much. And as you were speaking, I think you're talking about reflecting the markets that we serve. I think for the decades, you know, that not quite decades, but the years that I worked with newcomers and immigrants and having the conversation about the value of engaging and helping newcomers integrate into community and participate in the community, it's always been about you know, reflecting the markets that we serve and making sure that you see the value, right? Not only for the person themselves, the newcomer themselves, but just writ large for the organization, for the community. One of the statistics I didn't mention earlier is, you know, almost 30% of our fans are newcomers to this country, right? And I fully expect over time that's going to increase and continue to increase. And so just back to it being the business sense and recognizing the value of investing in different markets and different segments, that it actually not only helps that segment, but more broadly, it helps us all. In terms of best practices, you know, some of the things that come to mind, I'm sure everybody in this room is familiar with employee inclusion groups or employee resource groups and the value of those. We have 5 other organizations I've heard of organizations who doubled the amount, whether they call them ERGs, business resource groups, which is another acronym that's sometimes used. We refer to them as inclusion groups. That is so critical to representing the voice of underrepresented communities in any organization. And what what I'm most proud of, having oversight for these groups, is that our organization funds them in a very meaningful way. And so they have a budget to do work that listens to the members of the group, which are the racialized and diverse and underrepresented voices in the company, and to design and develop programming that resonates and makes sense. But what's more important is not just the activities, it's also making sure that we have visible leadership, that our leaders are also engaged and participating and showing up so that they can learn and understand what the challenges are that employees are experiencing and their shared responsibility in addressing those issues. There's a number of career mentorship workshops, etc., that we do, whether we're out in community. And I will join our director of recruitment and participate together in community, talking to the youth, which is a lot of time the large percentage of the audience that's in the room, whether it's racialized women, young people from all different backgrounds, etc. And the types of questions that we get asked in those rooms, it really just, there's always inevitably some kids that are going to astutely ask you to help them understand how they navigate corporate spaces, help them understand how they build networks, professional networks, which we talked about credentials being a challenge. There are other challenges as well, but from an employment standpoint, a lot of the challenge is lack of referrals, lack of networks to know who to connect with in an organization. I mean, whether you're a newcomer or not, it's a challenge right now for young people to get a job. But you overlay that with someone who doesn't have a full understanding of our culture, how to navigate our culture, or some of the ways in which they actually might need to be respectfully bold to lead and charge their own careers. Sometimes they don't necessarily understand that nuance. They want to wait until they're spoken to, wait until they're asked for something, as opposed to taking ownership and knowing that it's okay to advocate for yourself and speak up for yourself. So when I'm in those rooms, which are predominantly racialized kids who come from, immigrant homes, as an example, I take immediate opportunity to share my own personal experience and the years that I wasted waiting for someone to offer me something, or the inferiority complex where you just don't think you're good enough to ask or to demand more. And so it's amazing all of the responsibility in this room and outside of this room that we share in helping people more quickly integrate and immerse themselves into our communities and quickly become much more productive, and increase the conversion rate between the time that they're here, the time to employment, the time, etc. So those are just some of the best practices that I think. And then the final thing we were talking about this at our table that we don't sometimes address, and so I tend to be pretty transparent to a fault sometimes in these conversations, but there is a fundamental systemic issue that is underlying a lot of the work that we do in this space that's getting in the way. There's no doubt that everyone on the panel and that Wendy and what we'll hear, there is, we can't argue that it makes sense, right? That newcomers to this country, the increasing racialized population, we can't argue that these things just make business sense. I think the broader question for me sometimes in my quiet moments is, why is this continuing to be a problem? Why is it continuing to get in the way? Why is there continuing to be a bias? What is the issue? And oftentimes I think, yeah, I'm an immigrant, but think of our Indigenous community who have been here long before perhaps most of us in this room, unless there's someone here who's Indigenous, and are still experiencing backlash, if you will, still struggling to feel a sense of belonging in this country where they were here first. So a lot of the issues and the barriers to the progress we're talking about is so rooted in that that kind of let's face it, there's still racism here and discrimination and all of the things. And how do you get people to confront those historic inequities so that we can just move on, to acknowledge that it's real and that it actually did happen, and we all perhaps had a part or a role to play. And how can we just acknowledge that and figure out how do we work together to move forward? And sometimes I think it's just so hard for people to go there and to have to confront that. It's just a lot easier to work with what you know, who you know, and to not have to deal with and confront those issues. And that can sometimes delay progress. So for me, especially as a racialized person, I'm not here to hit anyone over the head. It's just meeting people where they are, being respectful in the conversations that we're having, trying to understand what's getting in your way, what role can I play to help you better understand the value that this could bring to the organization, to bring to employees, to fans, so that you don't feel like you're losing something in order for us to work together to accelerate and advance the overall objectives. That makes any sense.
Yeah. So Angela and I would have some of that conversation to it, and I couldn't agree more, because I think the systemic underlying massive ankle weight that you have that's dragging us down is there. It is not being addressed. We like to think we're very different than the US. Canada supported the Confederacy during the Civil War. So we did. Like, we don't like to talk about it, but we did. Right? Like, that's a pretty ugly state and moment in our history. We did it for economic reasons. We did it the same reason the Civil War was about economic reasons. I think one of the things that I want to express to kind of talk about is that, and it goes back to that chart that Wendy had that showed the different groups and what the impact was on wages across them, is these conversations right now are too often happening with the person who's just slightly above it on the chart. And if I go ask that group, look like me, they make less money than I do, about what their current day-to-day is, when they hear that they have privilege and they are terrified about feeding their children, they won't hear you. They just won't. But that's not who we need to have the conversation. They don't have space or capacity for it, because yes, they are doing better than every single other person on that group by massive factors, but they are also drowning. They're just drowning a little bit slow. Right? And so you tell someone who's drowning to sit there and say, it's like, no, you need to go rescue somebody. When there's people on the yacht, we got to pick our spots. Now, again, unfortunately, in our society, the people on the yacht don't want to hear it and are in a position to sit there and just sail forward. So we end up in this spot where we pick a fight with who's left. And we're just like, hey, listen to me, I have something real to say. And we absolutely do. All of these things are very real. But what I think we've got to do is sit there and look at is the other side of the conversation is, and again, very Barack Obama 2004 convention speech to it, is what unites us is what unites us. And I think when we go into the humanity side to it, if we can really focus on having this is true, we're actually on the same team. What are we going to do together? Who am I shared experience? And that's what I think you're talking about immigration, is kind of move through these corporate spaces to it. Is you're sitting there talking about these programs and these events to it, where the person who's sitting there going for it's like, no, Tim, we don't have 2% for you this year. Just doesn't hit the budget. And then you sit there and see the public statements come in. It's like, sure, there's dividend increase by 22%. Really? We don't have 2%? Okay. Right. And I think when you start looking at this, and this is where the SME piece to me is such an answer. You get into this room to it and you talk, the original question was best practices. SMEs and integrating immigrants and integrating other people into that company is the owner is likely sitting there juggling 400 things, doesn't have 2 minutes to themselves. And all they want is somebody to come in and do exactly what Angela said, which is, coach, I got the ball. I'll tell you when it's done. And that's a really hard, scary thing to do when you're not from here, when you don't look like everybody. I can't imagine without me. Oftentimes I think you drop me in Mumbai tomorrow. Yeah, I have no idea what that's going to be like. I hope I can, right? I hope the visa wins at that point in time. It's a really scary idea and prospect to it. So I think what we look at is how do we help companies, regardless of size, but especially the small, medium-sized enterprises, build onboarding programs that are on HR onboarding. So it's no offense to anybody who's in HR, payroll benefits. Super, super important. But when you get through day one of filling out all the forms so your taxes are paid properly, what's day 2? What's day 22? What's day 802? How do we build this spot where we're developing people within these organizations to turn into what Angela's talking about? Because when you sit there, there is not again, if you work for a company where you suggest an idea that will make the company more money, save the company money, or help the people who work there, and your boss does not acknowledge that, work somewhere else as fast as humanly possible, I'd love to help. But most small, medium owners, you show them a path where their life's going to get easier, they're going to make more money, or their team is going to be more successful and they can provide for that business better. That's how you get promoted. That's how you add actual value. We got to give people the confidence. I just had somebody that I connected to a business recently where she is fantastic. And the feedback I got after a month was she's always waiting for us to tell her what to do. Anybody else feel like they've gotten a version of that where it's like, just do it? That's kind of less from a place of the individual and more from the person who's looking for it. It's also grounding right in, regardless of what their job title is, regardless of what they're current. They don't feel like they can get through the day. But we've got to teach young people in this country, regardless of where they come from, young people, anybody sub 50, is how do you effectively go get the game and take the right initiative? How do you do this? How many people have gotten a post-secondary degree in the room? Pretty reasonable amount of people. How many people felt prepared for how to go get shit done at work when they showed up? On day one, you guys are more special. Half of you more special. Actually, yeah, right? But I think this is the point to it is, and again, I say this within a public institution, so I'm gentle with it, but we've got a for-profit entity here that is producing your ability to get a piece of paper that is a standardized test to say you can do work instead of as a whole. That's Wendy's PhD, right? That's what we do. We don't prepare people to go succeed and do what we need to do to add that, right? We sat, brought me to a wonderful forum in the fall, and it was employers in the Niagara region. And the number one thing they wanted was problem solving. When I asked them, one, to define problem solving, everyone really kind of struggled with it. It's like, I kind of know it when I see it. Okay. 2, what problem solving training exists like? There's no problem solving training. You get in there, you mess it up 16 times, and by time 17, you're a little bit better at it. Welcome to problem solving. But we don't give young people the confidence to go make that mistake. It's they're lazy, they're not intelligent enough, they suck, whatever the language is going to be. And I think what we try and do, if you guys are working with employers, is this is going to be very odd, but people in positions of power and executives need much more help to learn how to do their job properly, which is be stewards of the organization, to be actual leaders, than the people who are looking for jobs that are forward. So you got to remember, most of these people who are 52 years old today read Jack Welch's book of how he managed GE in 1990 and thought he was the smartest guy in the world. Whereas GE just had better access to the banking system at the time and bought more companies, so their revenue. Right? Wealthy people tend not to be honest about why they're very successful. They have access to buy more things than produce results. Okay. That doesn't mean you're able to screw widgeting better. It doesn't mean you're able to grow engagement across a diversifying fan base in a city where MLSE is sitting there being like, how do I get those people in London, Ontario to drive into the city and spend more money on concessions? That's a challenge. You gotta figure that out. And for me, the answer to the question is best practices. Help people onboard somebody in a more sustainable way that is not an HR form, but is actually time and effort and engagement into, if you're better at your job a year from now, I think that's.
I'm just gonna tag on a couple of things. Then I'm gonna invite Brad to come to my yes, the first hand experience there, but there were great best practices came out from the search. But just to tag on to what Andrew was just saying, that's why across maybe over 15 industries or sectors across that the future works tour that we did across the country was problem solving, flexibility, and adaptability. These were the skills that people needed. When we talked about technical skills, they were like, no, I'll trade technical skills. Just give me those 3 top skills, because that's what we needed to this purpose. And Ralph, please come in more.
Good morning, everyone. Sorry for being late. I sort of blame Porter for my part in this.
Welcome, Ralph Khan, everyone, Director of Manufacturing Initiatives at the Excellent in the Manufacturing Consortium.
Yeah.
I'll give you a quick chance to kind of introduce yourself. Sorry for putting you on the spot, but the first question I have for everyone is, introduce your industry and maybe say something that not everyone knows about your industry in regards to immigration.
Well, I'm Director of Manufacturing Initiatives with a nonprofit called Excellence in Manufacturing. It's sort of EMC is sort of what we call, about 30 years old. We have a network of about 18,000 manufacturers all across Canada. And I lead projects and initiatives that are largely government, federal, and provincially funded, largely on workforce development. We're about 1.9 million people that are in the industry, and we contribute close to 11% of Canada's GDP. That equates to about $750 billion in sales every year that goes through Canada. I would say that one of our biggest challenges right now is labor shortages. And we have a lot of systemic issues, particularly in skilled trades. But for many, many years, it was a range of positions, a lot of entry-level roles. But we find more recently with more manufacturers taking on advanced manufacturing, such as robotics, automation, starting to think about AI. They're looking for people that are more technically adept or have some experience in technology. This is going to present quite frankly, some issues to maybe some of the entry-level folks that are looking for roles. And let's be frank about this, let's probably some of your new Canadians that haven't been able to get their credentials recognized or their education recognized. The bar is being set even a little bit higher now going forward. So that's going to create a bit of a mismatch here in this economy that probably already exists to a certain extent. I think that probably the main thing I would probably go with is that even though we have a labor shortage, we have a talent utilization issue here, specifically in manufacturing, where we probably have a lot of good people in manufacturing that are new Canadians or potentially could work in manufacturing new Canadians, but their skills or their credentials aren't being recognized, so they're not getting the benefit. But as an industry that is hoping and wants and needs to increase over the couple of years in Canada, it's going to be so much important that employers have quality recruitment, onboarding, and retention programs that do factor in with the Canadians.
Thank you. I think you've touched on a lot of really important points that I would like to broadcast to more of the broader panel. I'm wondering, in terms of labor shortages and the skill utilization problem that you mentioned, have there been any impacts or any developments related to the changes to immigration policy that we've seen in the recent years?
You know what? I asked Patrick if government was in the room, so I can safely say this. I can't comment, quite frankly, on any of these policies. I'm not up to speed on any of the changes. But I think my main point is that the system isn't set up for the speed of business right now. And I am not being shy and saying this to our friends at IRCC. One of the problems that we have with our system is it hasn't been set up for small and medium-sized business. I hear time and time again, consult with big companies, these big multinationals. That's not who's driving the economy here in Canada. It's small and medium-sized business. You described it pretty well when you talk about what small business is dealing with. An owner is sometimes a person that changes the toilet paper, or someone that's doing HR, that's doing everything. And to navigate the complexity of the Canadian immigration system is daunting. That's been one of the major barriers that we have. One of the things that we do for our network and membership at EMC is we make government programs easy to participate. But no one's sort of doing that right now. The LMIA is absolutely horrible, and there's a lot of misconceptions. Whether or not IRCC has made some, quite frankly, significant changes, that would be news to me.
Just one point I wanted to add to that. It takes me back to the days of working every day with immigrants starting a business in this country, right? You're either pushed or pulled into starting a business, depending on how quickly you can get access to employment or not. You may not have a choice but to start a business. And the point you're making, you have an owner who is passionate about that business or selling that product or service, but they don't know anything about HR and accounting and all the other hats that they have to wear. And I remember the frustration working, they felt, working with business owners, trying to get access to financing, not necessarily having the credentials to be able to do that, not actually fully always appreciating the importance of cash flow to actually manage the day-to-day operations of their business. And the most rewarding, probably one of the most rewarding positions and jobs I've ever had, just going into these businesses, walking through their inventory, helping them understand, even asking questions like, how long have these boxes been on the shelf? But actually really genuinely helping them understand how to build a successful business in Canada. And I think one of the things I learned is the commitment was there, the dedication was there. No one wants to fail for all the things we've talked about, but to access people who actually care about helping you succeed, that was a lot of where the gap was. To be able to sit with newcomers and business owners, newcomer business owners, and value what they're trying to do and give them the time of day to expose them to the resources that they need. And I know we haven't talked about supplier diversity yet today, but that was another critical part of the entire ecosystem, is how do you ensure that they become, or help them know that they can become certified to get access to more opportunity through the diversity councils. And so it's just a worthy and purposeful set of conversations to have, working with small businesses that are immigrant owners in this business. And my brother is an example of one that started his own business over 20 years ago, and so proud of what he has achieved. But everything we've discussed today, I remember having those conversations with him and what his experience was like in the early days, getting access to financing, getting off the ground. It's like you have to prove you're already sort of coming in from behind, but you have to keep proving I'm worthy, take a chance on me. The pizza in my neighborhood is an example. This man, I swear he must have, paid off his loan 1 million times over, and he's doing so well. But I remember when he first started trying to get access to financing, not having all the things that he needed to demonstrate that the credibility that he can be a business owner and be successful at it. And he has certainly proved that he has. So it's just these examples, I'm sure, are replicated all over Canada.
So I want to, Angela just said the most important thing, which is cash. I want to go back to what Baf said. I can't believe I'm going to do this, but I'm going to defend the American system. It's just like, if the IRCC fixed every single problem that everyone in this room has highlighted, it would make a very small difference against the actual. And I'll use the robotics piece. There is nowhere in the world other than China where elite manufacturing positions where people are not trying to leave to come here. We're ready to go to operate the machine we're talking about right now. They're not. There's nobody in South America. There's nobody in the Middle East. There's nobody in Africa who is sitting there working on the exact same equipment who tomorrow would jump in to a manufacturing facility in Toronto and operate it as them. They're not looking to leave. So when we talk about a skills gap, what we're actually talking about is a training gap. These people, we are looking for work ethic, we're looking for intelligence, we're looking for commitment. We're not looking for someone who already does something. Talked about how fast things are moving right now. Business owners are struggling more than ever because they're sitting there being like, oh my God, what is Claude? What is that? How do I integrate it into my business? All of these different tools. I shared that on my table. Gallup did a poll about 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, 1,000 executives in the US who have adopted AI. They asked them, how much more productive are they? And 89% said they are not more productive. If you give someone a faster plane to go from Toronto to Montreal, and they want to go to Vancouver, it doesn't. Right? They're in Montreal, are still not knowing this. And so I'm going to circle back now on Angela's side on cash. If you look at the average small to medium-sized business, the reason they don't have more robust training programs to develop people and retain people is they don't have enough cash. This is a money fundamental. At the end of the day, if you go look at manufacturing, Raph will give you the actual numbers, but I don't know if you can share them. If we look at the net income percentage of revenue of an average manufacturer, it is one of the least profitable businesses there are. It is ruthlessly competitive. It is like unbelievably competitive to it across the board. The reason they're letting people go and investing in robotics is they're trying to get the loan from the bank to be able to reduce their staffing costs because they can't increase the price of their goods. And it is unbelievably competitive in that space to it. And they're fighting a very, very good fight to break even. We're slightly better than break even. There's not a lot of small manufacturing businesses where you look, it's like, hey, there's a Ferrari. Not a Ferrari, right? And so when we step back here and look at these spaces, we start figuring out what we want to do. My biggest government issue, and this is where Iris is all the issues in the world. I have a much bigger issue with things like the federal government and the Quebec government partnering with Northvolt Batteries to invest $510 million, two different investment vehicles. $240 million was a non-refundable loan. Before ground was broken, Northvolt filed for bankruptcy. People of Quebec and people of this country lost $240 million. That's pretty frustrating across the board. There's 20 million taxpayers. We each lost $12. Like we'll get over it. But the actual issue is we're spending $510 million to buy jobs. How many jobs do you think we're getting for $510 million? Anybody want to venture a guess? Two. See, she's skeptical if she knows around that place. It was $3,000.
No,
It's nothing.
if I may, that's one of the, we did a paper looking at SME job creation versus a lot of those big investments in large companies, and dollar for dollar, investing in SME growth, anything you can do to drive SME growth produces more jobs and more results.
So
The stuff we've looked at.
when people in this country in the political arena, regardless of party, say we don't have the money for things, one, bullshit. Two, you're going to go talk to Wendy and she's going to explain it's actually true. And three is that we're going to stop investing in companies that you're going to end up as a board seat when you retire from politics. It's got to stop. And government in the room or not in the room, I don't know.
Was that the formula to get on board?
Right? And when we start to look at these kind of things to it, the level of investment into large companies to sit there and say, it's like when Amazon was building their second headquarters to it, every city in the world was bending over backwards to give them every single tax break in the world to create what? Jobs that are going to make the housing crisis worse. Every single day. Again, World Cup happening on the street. Everyone pretty excited. Horrible economic decision. Horrible. City of Toronto nicely got caught breaking the rule of the province of Ontario scalping this. Quickly, if anybody uses this. Ultimately, when I come back, that's why I'm defending IRCC, is like of the priority list of problems to it, we need to invest our own taxpayer money. So everybody in the room, sit here, and this is my number one standing point how we get there. All of us are not as involved in politics as we should. You guys are all here at a forum having a conversation. And again, I don't know everybody well. How many people are would consider themselves a political activist? Spend time. No one needs for sure. Get it. Okay. The best and the brightest are in this room. We are in the top. Everyone who's here is in the top 1%. People in society who has the intelligence and the work ethic. And the fact that you're in the room proves it to me. And none of you will get politics. Why? Because it's the worst. But that's where all the actual things happen. And so if you fundamentally care about immigration, going to work for a not-for-profit is wonderful. Like, you are doing unbelievable work. And we are going to lose. We have to get in the game. We have to fundamentally, every single person here has to, and I'm asking a lot. Like, I'm asking as somebody who has to set their own schedule, who owns a company, who has all the privileges that come with that. I know what I'm saying. I'm the first, you should all sit here and I'm surprised everyone's respectful enough to be like, how much are you doing? Which is what you should, because I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
I'm working on it. I'm getting really close. But in all seriousness, I think this is where we fundamentally get to these kind of things to it. You're all sitting here having these conversations, and more people agree that we're not doing the things that are going to actually make a difference. $510 million. That's a lot of money. Right. And again, I'll support the Carney government and some of their defense spending sides to it. I'm not going to talk about the idea of buying planes, not buying planes to it. But you know what? It's going to take a bunch of rash manufacturers to build planes. I'm okay with that. Right. On the list of things that we're going to go out and do, I'm okay that people are going to get good jobs and reasonable. And I think that, again, we can talk about the political implications of bombs and where they go, and there's a lot there. But we've got to sit here, and when you said it, my favorite thing, because I've been talking about it with everybody behind this. We built the railroads. I'm going to ask everybody to forget for a second. We killed a lot of Asian immigrants while doing it. And we're going to say is, in this country and in the Western world, had a formula for how to build an economy in a new place. The first settlers were farmers. The second settlers built houses. The third settlers in there built the supporting businesses for the people who were farming and then manufacturing. That's the model. It works. We were doing it 150 years ago and we've stopped doing it. The answer now is come here, live in whatever GTA related community and drive for Uber and Amazon and 14 other things. We have to stop. We have to. It's awful. It's awful for the people who are here. That's why the biggest immigration for recent immigrants is off the charts because they get in like Canada. It's worse, right? And I'll wrap it up. Soapbox. I tend to do that. I apologize. But I would just ask for everybody in the group too is if you want to fix immigration, fix the economic, societal policies in this country, which is showing up and holding our political representations accountable to. Run for office, start a political party, get in the game, lose, but make noise.
Thank you. We have about 5 minutes left, so I wanted to quickly do an audience check if anyone has any questions. There you go.
Great to hear all the points. I really know everything, all the situations and all dealing with, but I really do need to a takeaway from this. So what primarily are the current immigration for employment support? Where are they falling short, either for employers or for immigrants? Because I do love the discussion, but there does need to come to some solution and we want advocacy. So what do you see and what do you?
Well, I can say for industry, a more simplified process, something that consults small business all across the country to actually understand the true labor needs of the country. We've got too many skilled mismatches, and even if it's, people require a certain amount of training, but we're not bringing the right folks in some ways. That's how I put it. And then I would say, quite frankly, for IRCC to be far more public engaging with the ecosystem to support all these businesses and organizations.
Can I ask, sorry, before I answer, what you do? Research analyst. Okay. So I'm going to push back a little bit. I think the fact that we all have gone into this spot and it's very normal, and there's a reason you were funded to come here. So you have to answer for it. You have to be able to say something to it. Our desire for a quick snippet answer is part of the problem here. We have done all the quick snippet ones, Wendy's written all the papers. We're done. We have the answers. We know what the answers are. We don't do them because we're not having the upstream harder conversations, which the answers are simple. The work is harder as being accomplished. And I think that's where I would say is from a takeaway to it is we have the playbook. We have all of these different things that our employers are doing. But when Jim or Sarah Smith own a kitchen cabinet general contracting business in Kitchener, and they need staff right now, their actual bigger problem is their business is down 30% this year because nobody has any money to do Kitchener admissions. That's the entire country right now. And so we're looking for immigration answers. We've got to sit here and go where the actual problem is there's not enough money being spent by end of the line consumers, small and medium sized businesses, because small and medium sized businesses as a whole, reason everyone doesn't go to stores anymore, it's better at Amazon. Who's been to the mall recently? Do they have anything in the stores anymore? No, sizes are wrong, styles are wrong, everything is not there. And I think fundamentally is if you want to help the immigration side to it, and the takeaway is we have to go grow a stronger Canadian economy by investing in the businesses and letting them build better products and services.
I would just, and this is not a comment based on my current job, where I work or anything like that. It's just looking at the experience overall. I think there's an opportunity to make sure immigrants and newcomers know that they are welcome to work in the place, with employer organizations or wherever we are. So what are the story we tell or the narrative we tell to attract and make you know that there's a place for you, that you belong. One of the things that I learned a long time ago is just social interaction builds familiarity and it demystifies stereotypes and breaks down barriers, right? And just those simple steps that you can take to make sure as you come to this country, when you come in as a newcomer into the airport, you'll often see banks and whatever trying to sell you a credit card right away or open your account right away, which is great. Having worked for a bank, I know why that's happening. But it's so much more than that, right? Beyond that, what are you doing to help me feel welcome in the neighborhoods? Just simple things like all of us here can do, thinking about who makes up our communities and our neighborhoods and the role that we can, because this is a shared responsibility. And they're just simple human things that we can do every day to really make people feel like they made the right decision coming here. And that we're here to support and enable them, because a lot of the problems that I think we're experiencing requires a shift in behavior. Like to really effect change, you have to be affected by it. You have to care. You have to want to drive change. And I know I'm sounding super simple, and this is not a deep, complex academic response. Really, it isn't, because a lot of the times, in my experience, it's just the humanity that's required to care about the issues enough that you want to help people overcome some of the barriers that they. And there's nothing. I also will say, I don't know that there's anything wrong with privilege. It's what you do with privilege at the end of the day that matters. And unfortunately, Wendy talked a lot about EDI. And how essentially it's being weaponized. Call it whatever you want. There is not a company in the world today that can succeed without equity, diversity, and inclusion. You don't have to call it that, but just take a look at who's buying your stuff. Take a look at who is, whether it's women or racialized people. Just take a look at who's consuming the products and services that you are selling. You cannot grow revenue without one, an equitable approach to things or diverse populations helping you to develop and design or inclusive attitudes. And I think we're spending so much time backlashing, weaponizing, disinvesting, just trying to do everything we can to devalue that it's delaying the progress. So to the point you made, I don't know that the answers are that complicated, and we just need to have the courage to move to sort of take action and move things along.
No on that.
Pardon? No to the yacht.
Can I follow that up? So we did a panel interview study last year with the newcomer entrepreneurs. We said everything we just said. It's all those problems. For the people government and bring those issues. The thing is, it's not top of the agenda. So it's how do we make that top of the agenda?
It's telling a different narrative. We're not telling that
So that's the
story.
thing. Narratives are all over the
Yes.
The narrative system, and it come forward from a place where everybody has to play a part in it. Researchers have to play a part in it. Government has to play a part in it. But everybody has to come at it from a similar direction.
Like-
Right now, it's all broken.
But you know what can sometimes just sort of quiet the noise a little bit is real testimony of success. People who have come here, who have had those barriers, name them, call it out, and talk about the things that actually help them overcome. And one of the things I did years ago in this role supporting newcomers was work with a third party to identify entrepreneurs who are newcomers to this country that should be awarded for the work that they are doing. And it's probably one of the most rewarding things I've ever done. To see the pride, we would get a list of applicants this long, it was hard to pick. And then to kind of whittle it down to, I can't remember the number at the time, 5 or 6 or whatever it was. But what was most incredible to me was reading those applications. I could not believe what they had done with the opportunity that they were given coming into this country. They could run circles around me, and the opportunity to recognize them and award them for what and the contributions that they were making to the economy of this country is just unbelievable. And unfortunately, as racialized people, we're not very good at telling our stories. We don't think we should. We're in the background, it's in the shadows doing the work that we're doing. We're not always overt and outspoken about it. So you don't always know who we are and what we're doing, right? Others might be more comfortable doing that. We're not always. And so there's not enough of a consistent narrative coming out repeatedly showing the backbone of who's really driving the success in this country. Because we tend to hear more from the sort of smaller percentage who have access to the resources to amplify their stories a lot more than we do.
And just even doing that panel study is difficult for us. If a smaller organization, business organizations, that is supportable business.
Yeah.
We're taking that study, it would cost us $50,000 to do something. That's a bit outside our budget, considering we're funded by our government to small business.
Yeah.
So we took it ourselves to actually join with other groups to do this thing. But I don't see how anybody can tap into this or sort of bring that narrative to government if you don't have the resources to do it. So there does
Yes,
sort of
it's balanced.
different and other groups that come into this to do something that staff can't do. We push them on it. I mean, there's different organizations that do need to be pushed in the right direction to do something good, rather than just come up with statistics and leave them there.
But I think we're talking about two separate pieces. You're talking person to person, community, local interactions, how grassroots, 100%. Bottom up strategy. It's an extremely important part of it. Top down to it, Meta was on the list of companies that had an EDI program. Again, post George Floyd. Let's be honest about where it came from. It wasn't just one day they woke up, right? It was, this is the political climate. This is the revenue generating climate. And then the minute Meta has laid off more people in the United States than any single entity except for the US government. Why? Because they want to buy data centers. There is an economic case for this where we all have to sit there and say, who has a Facebook account? No, everybody, don't lie to me, please, right? Like,
I guess
stop me, right? Okay, right? And I'm not sitting there saying the political activism is to close Facebook. What I'm talking about is economically equal to it. There's a grassroots component. You talk about government and you talk about public policy. Governments can do two things: they collect money and spend money. It's all government is. We've elevated it into this social engineering piece too. We, the people. We have lost it. That's the exact point. We got to go get it back. But from a government public policy standpoint to it, stop spending my money like an idiot. Stop spending it with companies who are going to buy data centers. I don't want a data center. I don't need to know what my chat GPT question is that much faster. It doesn't help me. Right? And I think that we're spending money on these things because these are the people that have ear of the government. Have to change. Fundamentally, have to look at economics differently. And this is where the liberal conservative meeting natural fiscal versus social need to meet in the middle. Is it's grassroots and it's sound fiscal needs. You have to do both, right? You don't have the money in the
policy comes through grassroots.
100%, which is why my message is just like, let's be louder, right? Across the board too. When you talk about employers do it, the average employer who's trying to maintain payroll for 32 people does not need to hear they need to do more to employ the 33 person. They're trying to save 32 people, right? The person, again, I just politics aside, it sounds like I'm anti-left. Ontario legislature sat for 29.5 days before they took their summer break. Doug Ford went to 7 for 29 days. They're not back till October 27th. If you're not pissed about that, I don't know, right? So that's it.
This will be actually like, this will be the last word, so you're not pissed about government closing.
There you go.
That's it. Thank you so much for your participation in the panel. This is all the time we have. I'm sure we could have talked on for ages, but please join me in your end.